Hello, dear students. So, we are back with another interesting session on William Shakespeare's The Tragedy of Macbeth. And in this lecture, I'll cover from Act 3, Scene 4, which is popularly known as the Banquet Scene. Now, before I go into the banquet scene, let me take you back to Act 1, uh, Scene 4, line 55, where Duncan says about Banquo that if we feed on his graces, then it were a banquet. And ironically, we'll see that this scene concerns Banquo much more than it concerns Macbeth. Because via Banquo, over here, Shakespeare is trying to give a peep into Macbeth's own psychology. So via Banquo in this scene, we'll learn a lot about Macbeth's own psychological topography, his own mental makeup, and about what is going on into Macbeth's mind. All right. So let's begin. Already Banquo has been murdered by Macbeth's murderers. I mean the murderers that Macbeth had sent. And let's read now. A banquet prepared. Enter Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, Ross, Lennox, lords, and attendants. Macbeth, you know your own degrees. Sit down. At first and last, the hearty welcome. Now, the order presented here offers two very big problems. First of all, Macbeth has already suggested to the murderers that just like dogs, human beings have orders. And he has already made it very, very clear to the murderers that he considers them as dogs. Now, when it comes to his themes, we do not know what his attitude is. Therefore, it becomes even more interesting for us to understand what is going on in Macbeth's mind. Secondly, more importantly, the order presented here in this scene will soon be disrupted with the entering of Banquo's ghost. When we shall read the scene in line 118, we'll see that Macbeth will refer to it. So when I come to it, I'll mention it. Okay, as I come to it, I'll mention it. So, thanks to your majesty, Macbeth, ourself will mingle with society and play the humble host. Our hostess keeps her state, but in best time will require her welcome. So look, now they want to play the host and the hostesses again, just like once they played to Duncan a few days ago. So Lady Macbeth, pronounce it for me, sir, to all our friends, for my heart speaks, they are welcome. Enter first murderer to the door. Macbeth, see, they encountered thee with their hearts' thanks. Both sides are even, here I'll sit in the midst. Be large in mirth, anon will drink a measure, the table round. So, what is happening over here? Imagine there's a long table, okay, and Macbeth is sitting at the middle. Now, on both the sides, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are sitting at the middle, and on both the sides of the table, there are lords and ladies, primarily lords over here. So, Macbeth says that we'll drink and we'll pass the glass. Now, this was a very old custom, even from the Anglo-Saxon age. This custom was there. If you read Beowulf, for instance, you'll find that such a custom was there even in the Anglo-Saxon times. So in all forms of warrior society, this sharing of food and drink was a bond building exercise, kind of. Okay. So now Macbeth goes to the door to talk to the first murderer. There's blood upon thy face. So Macbeth is first and foremost worried about being found out, and therefore he does not wish to leave any visible signs of the murder, of the foul act that he has played. It is Banquo's then. 'Tis better thee without than he within. So Macbeth says that Banquo's blood is better on your skin rather than within his organs. So a dead Banquo is more welcome to Macbeth than an alive one. But ironically, we'll see very soon that a dead Banquo causes more problems to a Macbeth than an alive one. Okay, so Shakespeare, you see, we have reached Act 3. And this is a pivotal act because in this act, Shakespeare would be twisting and turning the plot. We have already reached the climax almost. And therefore, Shakespeare is deliberately giving us plot twists so that we are enwrapped with the story itself. And look, he says, is he dispatched? So is he dead? My lord, his throat is cut. That I did for him. Thou art the best of the cutthroats, yet his good that did the like for Fleance. If thou didst it, thou art nonpareil. So Macbeth says that you are the best cutthroat that we have. But if you are the one who cut Fleance's throat for me, then there is no parallel to you. But if you aren't the one who has cut Fleance's throat, then it's a problem. Then whoever has done it, then he is the best cutthroat. But look, here we find a little bit of discrepancy. Because if we are to accept that Macbeth is the third murderer, then why is he inquiring so much? So many critics have let go of the opinion that Macbeth is not the third murderer. So they have just debunked that theory. However, I believe that Macbeth does not want the murderer to know that the third murderer was Macbeth. And therefore, despite knowing it all, he is deliberately asking these questions. You can agree, you can disagree. Because that's the fun of literature. There can be multiple interpretations, all of them can be right, none of them can be right. That's the most interesting part about literature. That is, you can absolutely have a clear-cut idea about what is going on, and you might not. You see, if someday, and I pray that the day does not come, if someday the critics, the thinkers, the readers, they find out that, okay, these were the meanings of Macbeth. We have dealt with all the meanings. There is nothing else left. If that day comes, from that day onwards, reading Macbeth becomes redundant. No new meaning emerges. But you see, since each reading is an interpretation, a reinterpretation, therefore the interpretations never exhaust themselves. Okay. Excuse me. Let's come back. Most royal sir, Fleance is escaped. Then comes my fit again. I had else been perfect, whole as the marble, founded as the rock, as broad and general as the casing air, but now I am cabined, cribbed, confined, bound into saucy doubts and fears. But Banquo's safe. So look, Macbeth wanted Fleance out of his way, to put it very simply. And the fact that he wanted Fleance out of his way was his plan. So basically, with Fleance dying, one major thing would have happened for Macbeth. That is, one of the prophecies of the witches would have been proven wrong. But Macbeth does not realize that if the prophecies came true for him, then they would come true for Banquo as well. So he wishes to enact himself against destiny, against fate. Now, this is where I believe that Macbeth becomes the tragic hero and does not simply remain the tragic protagonist. The tragic I mean, protagonist, this word comes from two words, proto and agon. Proto means pro, that is one who supports, and agon means action. So one who supports an action, the action of the drama or the novel or the poem, becomes the protagonist. So the protagonist is simply the one who carries forward the action. But a hero has to be there in presence and in performance. And in Macbeth's determination to fight against his fate, his destiny, I believe that Macbeth becomes a tragic hero because that is where his presence and performance is mostly felt, most deeply felt. So, through his presence and performance, Macbeth enacts his destiny. And look, what he says is that if Fleance was out of my way, I would have been free, I would have been safe in my throne. But since Fleance is not free, so I am cabined, cribbed, as if I am uh, glued to the throne, excuse me, for the time being, and as if my powers have become limited because he knows that after his death, one day Fleance would be the king. So it would not be his heirs, but Fleance. And look, he says, but Banquo's safe. By this, he means the line of Banquo, the heredity of Banquo, the royal line of Banquo is safe. But look how the murderer interprets it. He says, I, my good lord, safe in a ditch he bides, with 20 trenched gashes on his head, the least a death to nature. So basically, Banquo trusted in the safety Macbeth provided, and he was ditched. Now, security is a mortal's chief enemy. This is what this play teaches us. And Macbeth says, thanks for that. There the grown serpent lies, the worm that's fled. By worm, he refers to Fleance. Uh, Basically, worm in Elizabethan parlance refers to any reptile, but primarily to the snake. Worm that's fled had nature in that in time will venom breed. No teeth for the present. Get thee gone, tomorrow we'll hear ourselves again. So look, he remembers his own metaphor. The snake is uh, the snake is as he had already said that the snake is disturbed but not killed. So the snake is uh, kind of he has pricked the snake, but the snake is not killed yet, and it might just bounce back and destroy Macbeth, poison Macbeth. One second. So now Lady Macbeth says, my royal lord, you do not give the cheer. The feast is sold. That is not often vouched while teas are making. 'Tis given with welcome, to feed where best at home. From thence the sauce to meat is ceremony, meeting where bear without it. So basically, Lady Macbeth says that unless you give our guests cheer, unless you welcome them, unless you share the food together, this meeting, this dinner, this banquet, were absolutely like a shop where you can buy food, where you can sell food. So there is no difference between that commercial aspect and the familial aspect of food, of sharing, of gathering together. Now Macbeth says, sweet remembrancer, now good digestion, wait on appetite, and health on both. So now Macbeth is becoming jolly once again. Lennox, may it please your highness seat. Here had we now our country's honor roofed, were the graced person of our Banco present. So Lennox points out to a chair or perhaps something where they would sit, and he says, "Why don't you sit here, my lord?" And Macbeth said, "But this seat is reserved for Banco." And ironically, Banco's ghost will come and sit on it. The ghost of Banco enters. So just like as if on cue, Banco's ghost enters and takes over the entire action of the scene and becomes the central motive of action. Banco seizes the opportunity and becomes the sole uh, performer of the scene and sits in Macbeth's place. So look, already the tides are turning. If this was a seesaw movement, then up till now Macbeth was here, Banco was here, but now the seesaw movement is changing because now Banco is rising and Macbeth is falling. So the appearance of the ghost is the disruption of time. That is, the past is disrupting the present. And as Macbeth had said, let the frame of things disjoint in Act 3, Scene 2. And now Macbeth is left with the disrupted wholeness that he so desired. Who may I rather challenge for unkindness than pity for mischance? So Macbeth is now playing very innocent. He's saying that I should blame Banco for missing our party rather than being pitiful towards him for missing it for some occasion or for some incident. And Ross says his absence, sir, lays blame upon his promise. Please it your highness to grace us with your royal company. So everybody says that okay, Banco is to blame for missing this dinner. Macbeth, the table's full. And Lennox says, here is a place reserved, sir. Where? Here, my good lord. What is it that moves your highness? And look, Macbeth has spotted the ghost. Therefore, he has become very shaky. And that's why Ross says that why are you so shaken? And Macbeth says, which of you have done this? So Macbeth, as always, he wants to put the blame on somebody else. So he thinks that this is a very cruel joke, that someone or the other of the lords have found out about Banco's murder, and they have put up some performer who is playing Banco's ghost, or perhaps Macbeth is trying to put the blame on somebody else. That which of you have done this murder? Which of you have committed this murder? The Lord say, what, my good lord? Thou canst not say I did it. So look, Macbeth is now on the guard. And he said, you can't blame me and say that I did it. Once again, he cannot utter murder. Never shake thy gorillock at me. So you see, Banco's ghost becomes the very agent of Macbeth's nemesis. And this is the turning point. After the banquet scene, Macbeth will lose his conscience and become the hellhound, as Macduff would much later call him. Therefore, he is henceforth seldom seen encountering with any other character. Now, Macbeth said that to know my deeds, it was best to know myself, but the ghost will make him encounter himself, and that's what will make him so very uncomfortable. That's what is making him uncomfortable. And Ross says, gentlemen, rise, his highness is not well. So Ross thinks that Macbeth is not feeling well. And Lady Macbeth, the great buffer, is trying to make up for the entire scene. And so she says, sit, worthy friends, my lord is often thus, and hath been from his youth. Pray you, keep sit. The fit is momentary. Upon a thought he will again be well. If much you note him, you shall offend him, and extend his passion. Feed and regret him not. So now Lady Macbeth, you see, I believe that Lady Macbeth would have said that since he saw the dead body of Duncan, he is behaving like this. And that would have kind of caused a sort of pity in the lords, and they would have been more favorable to Macbeth. Perhaps his uh, murder would not have been found out. But the problem is that Lady Macbeth says that okay, he has been like this since his childhood. He has such fits. Now, if you pay much heed to him, if you pay much notice to him, then you will be only aggrandizing his fit. And then she turns to Macbeth and says, "Are you a man? So, are you Bellona's bridegroom?" Now, look, far from this assertion of Macbeth being Bellona's bridegroom, brave Macbeth, noble Macbeth, now Lady Macbeth questions his manhood, a single state of man. Macbeth says, "I, and the bold one, that dare look on that which might appall the devil." And Lady Macbeth says, "Oh, proper stuff. So, stop bragging. This is the very painting of your fear. This is the air-drawn dagger which you said led you to Duncan. Oh, these flaws and starts, impostors to true fear, would well become a woman's story at a winter's fire, authorized by her grandam. Shame itself, why do you make such faces? When all's done, you look but on a stool." She says that why do you lose your nerve every time in front of people? If you keep on doing this, then we will be found out. And she says if it were a village woman sitting around the fire and weaving a tale of ghosts and so on and so forth, which her grandmother would approve of, then it were good. But you are a king. Being so ravished by your fears is not what suits you. So if you are a king, start behaving like one and stop making this nonsensical um, emotional outbursts at appearances. You are simply looking at a stool, an empty stool. And Macbeth says, "Prithee, so I pray to you, look there. Behold, look low, how say you? Why, what care I, if thou canst not speak to? If charnel houses and our graves must send those that we bury back to our monuments, shall be the moors of kites." So now Macbeth directly addresses the ghost that if you can nod your head, why don't you speak to me? Because if the people that we bury, if they come back from the slaughterhouses, from the burial grounds, then all our monuments shall be moors of kites. So all our achievements shall be food for predatory birds. Ghost disappears. What? Quite unmanned in folly. So Macbeth is startled. The ghost suddenly disappears. And Lady Macbeth says that, okay, so your stupidity has left you unmanned. If I stand here, I saw him. So if it's true that I stand here, that I am real, then the ghost is real as well. So Macbeth is now comparing the existence of the ghost through his sense perception. So in a way, Shakespeare is echoing a Cartesian uh, principle, that is, uh, Descartes, Rene Descartes, a Renaissance philosopher, once in his meditations very famously said, "Cogito ergo sum," I think, therefore I am. And Macbeth says, "Since I am, therefore the ghost is." So it's an assertion based on the Cartesian lines. Fie for shame. And Macbeth says, "Blood had been shed ere now in the olden times, ere human statute purged the gentle will. Aye, and since too murders have been performed, too terrible for the ear, The time has been that when the brains were out, that man would die, and there an end. Now they rise again with 20 mortal murders on their crowns and push us from our stools. This is more strange than such a murder is. So Macbeth is now referring to the biblical murder of Abel by Cain. Cain and Abel were brothers, and Cain was the first murderer because he murdered Abel. And now Macbeth says that murder has happened before now, even in the olden days, of the days of the Bible. But the issue is that once a person was murdered, he stayed dead. But now the dead people come back to haunt us. And Lady Macbeth says, "My worthy lord, your noble friends do lack you. So your friends are waiting upon you, and you are spewing such fantastical tales. That's not acceptable. So please get back to your senses." I do forget. "Do not muse at me, my worthy friends. I have a strange infirmity, which is nothing to those that know me. Come, love and health to all. Then I'll sit down. Give me some wine, fill full. I drink to the general joy of the whole table, and to our dear friend Banquo, whom we miss. Would he were here." And look, as if just to obey Macbeth's wish, re-enter Ghost. "To all and him with thirst and all to all." So Macbeth says that cheers to everyone and to Banquo whom we miss. And the Lords say our duties and the pledge. So we pledge our loyalty and our duties towards you. "Avaunt and quit my sight, let the earth hide thee. Thy bones are marrowless, thy blood is cold. Thou hast no speculation in those eyes which thou dost glare with." And suddenly Macbeth has seen the ghost, and he says that, "Get out of my sight, let the earth hide thee. Your blood is cold, and there is no speculation in your eyes. You just simply glare at me." So through the eyes, you at least understand what the other person is trying to say, because the eyes do not lie. But but Macbeth cannot see any expression in Banquo's eyes, or rather the eyes of the dead Banquo. So Macbeth says that there is no speculation, there is no emotion in your eyes with which I can speculate what you are thinking, but you are simply glaring at me, so get out of my sight. And Lady Macbeth, think of this, good peers, but as a thing of custom, it is not to others. It is no other. Only it spoils the pleasure of the time. So she once again brings back that theory of Macbeth's fit, because otherwise Banquo's murder would be found out. "What man dare? I dare. Approach thou like the rugged Russian bear, the armed rhinoceros, or the Hyrcan tiger. Take any shape but that, and my firm nerves shall never tremble, or be alive again, and dare me to desert with thy sword. If trembling I inhabit, then protest me, the baby of a girl. Hence, horrible shadow, unreal mockery, hence." So look, Macbeth is basically saying that come to me in any corporeal form. Be it the rugged Russian bear, the Harkan tiger, the rhinoceros which has an armed horn. So whatever you are, come in any corporeal form, or become alive once again and face me. If I kind of flinch, then call me a pansy, call me a girl, call me whatever you wish to. But unless you do so, get out of here, you horrible shadow, you unreal mockery. And the ghost disappears. "Why, so being gone, I am a man again. Pray you, sit still." So now he asks everybody that sit still, because the ghost is gone and I am a man again. Lady Macbeth says, "You have displaced the mirth, broke the good meeting with most admired disorder." But Macbeth is not concerned about that. And he now ruminates. Can such things be, and overcome us like a summer's cloud without our special wonder? You make me strange even to the disposition that I owe. When now I think you can behold such sights, and keep the natural ruby of your cheeks, when mine is blanched with fear. So Macbeth says that I have become pale with fear. But how can you, lady, keep the blush on your cheeks? So my brows are filled with the summer cloud, as if there is a cloud of thought, there is a cloud of fear on me. And you, dear lady, are still maintaining your countenance. How is that possible? And Ross says, what sights, my lord? Everybody is interested. What sights, my lord? I pray you, speak not. He grows worse and worse. Question enrages him. At once, good night. Stand not upon the order of your going, but go at once. So now Lady Macbeth thinks that if Macbeth starts to speak, he will spill the beans. And therefore she bids adieu to everyone. Good night and better health attend his majesty. A kind good night to you all, excellent lords and attendants. It will have blood, they say. Blood will have blood. Stones have been known to move and trees to speak. Augurs and understood relations have by magpies and crows and chooks and rooks brought forth the secretest man of blood. What is the night? Almost at odds with morning, which is which? So now Macbeth says that there is a disruption in the natural order as all kinds of birds and beasts, they are behaving strangely. All kinds of natural elements are behaving strangely. And then he asks that how long is it to morning? What is the hour? And Lady Macbeth says that it's very difficult to say whether it's late night or early morning. And then he asks, how sayest thou that Macduff denies his person at our great bidding? Did you send to him, sir? I heard it by the way, but I will send. There's not a one of them but in his house. I keep a servant feed. I will tomorrow, and betimes I will to the weird sisters. More shall they speak, for now I am bent to know, by the worst means the worst. For mine own good, all causes shall give way. I am in blood steeped so far that should I wait no more, returning were as tedious as go over. Strange things I have in head that will to hand, which must be acted ere they may be scanned. And now Macbeth says that I have been so steeped in blood that if I do not spill more blood, then I won't be able to return to my normalcy. And he proposes that he will visit the weird sisters, the three witches, to know more about his future, because he says that no matter whatever prophecies they have made, I'll make them work for me. So they will be for my own pleasure. And look, he is already worried about Macduff because Macduff has rejected his offer. You lack the season of all nature's sleep. But Macbeth has murdered sleep. Macbeth can't sleep no more. Come, will to sleep. My strange and self-abuse is the initiate fear that wants hard use. We are yet but young indeed. So there's more murder to be committed. Scene 5, the heath. Thunder entered the three witches, meeting Hecate. Why, how now, Hecate? You look angrily. Have I not reason? Beldams as you are, saucy and overbold, how did you dare to trade and traffic with Macbeth in riddles and affairs of death? And I, the mistress of your charms, to close contriver of all harms, was never called to bear my part or show the glory of our art. So Hecate is angry that why didn't you involve me in your face-off with Macbeth? And which is worse, all you have done had been but for a wayward son, spiteful and wrathful, who, as others do, loves for his own ends, not for you. But make amends now, get you gone, and at the peat of Acheron meet me in the morning, Thither he will come to know his destiny. So she says that you have wasted your powers on a wayward son. Look, the fact that Hickett calls Macbeth a wayward son, and Lady Macbeth has already unsexed herself, and Macbeth is the murderous son that she has given birth to. It is believable that she is the fourth witch. But she says that we shall meet at the banks of Acheron. Acheron is basically the river of the, the Greek river of death is called Styx, Styx, and Acheron of Charon is the uh, boatsman of that river. And look, she says that we'll meet there in the morning by the by Acheron, at the pit of Acheron, and there Macbeth will meet us. So Macbeth will go into his personal hell to know about the hell that he is. Your vessels and your spells provide your charms, and everything beside. I am for the air, this night I'll spend unto a dismal and fatal end. Great business must be wrought ere noon. Upon the corner of the moon there hangs a vaporous drop profound. I'll catch it ere it comes to ground, and that distilled by magic's lights shall raise such artificial sprites as by the strength of their illusions shall draw him onto his confusion. Now here confusion means destruction. So she says that I'll distill nature's fogs and mists, and I'll create such illusions of spirits that will cause him his destruction. He shall spurn fate, scorn death, and bear his hopes above wisdom, grace, and fear. And you all know security is mortal's chiefest enemy. As I have already said, Banquo faced that, now Macbeth shall face it too. Song within, come away, come away. Remember Act 1, Scene 3. Sleep shall neither night nor day hang about his penthouse late. He shall leave a man for bed. Where 7 nights, 9 times 9, shall he dwindle, pick and pine. Though his bark cannot be lost, yet it shall be tempest tossed. The same thing repeats over here. Hark! I am called, my little spirit sea sits in a foggy cloud and stays for me. Come, let's make haste. She'll soon be back again. So now the witches exit. Scene 6, somewhere in Scotland, enter Lennox and another lord. My former speeches have but hit your thoughts, which can interpret further. Only, I say, things have been strangely born. The gracious Duncan was pitied of Macbeth. Marry, he was dead, and the right valiant Banquo walked too late. Whom you may say, if it please you, Fleance killed, for Fleance fled. Men must not walk too late. So Scotland is ruined by Macbeth. And look, basically everybody now doubts Macbeth because all of his alibis are too convenient, as if almost by the book. That's what makes these people worried. Who cannot want the thought how monstrous it was for Malcolm and for Donalbain to kill their gracious father? Damned fact! How it did grieve Macbeth! Did he not straight in pious rage the two delinquents tear, that were the slaves of drink and thralls of sleep? Was not that nobly done? So look, now they're back calculating and all of it is falling in place. It is too convenient to be true. Aye, and wisely too, for it would have angered any heart alive to hear the men deny it. So that I say he has borne all things well, and I do think that had he Duncan's son under his key, as and it please heaven he shall not, they should find what it were to kill a father, so should Fleance. So now they say that if he gets his paws on Fleance or Malcolm or Donalbain, they would be put to death in the similar manner. But peace, for from broad words and because he failed his presence at the tyrant's feast, I hear Macbeth leaves in disgrace. Sir, can you tell where he bestows himself? So look, Macduff now lives in disgrace. The son of Duncan, from whom this tyrant holds the due of birth, lives in the English court and is received of the most pious Edward with such grace that the malevolence of fortune nothing takes from his high respect. Thither Macduff is gone to pray the Holy King upon his aid to wake Northumberland and warlike Seward, that by the help of these, with him above to ratify the war, we may again give to our tables meat, sleep to our nights, free from our feasts and banquets bloody knives, do faithful homage, and receive free honours, all which we pine for now. And this report hath so exasperated the king that he prepares for some attempt of war. So basically, Malcolm and Macduff have fled to England, where they have met with Edward the Confessor. If you want to know about Edward the Confessor, you can simply Google it. And Edward has gathered two forces, Northumberland and Seward, and along with Macduff and Malcolm's forces, they plan to attack on Macbeth and get his due back, that is his throne back, which Macbeth has usurped. But Macbeth is also angry and he wants to go to war. Sent he to Macduff, he did, and with an absolute, Sir, not I. The cloudy messenger turns me his back, and hums, as who should say, You'll rue the time that clogs me with this answer. So when Macduff rejected the offer, even the messenger has the attitude of saying that, of almost suggesting that you'll rue the time when you denied this offer, and that well might advise him to a caution, to hold what distance his wisdom can provide. Some holy angel fly to the court of England and unfold his message ere he come, that a swift blessing may soon return to this our suffering country under a hand accursed. I'll send my prayers with him. So now they're eagerly waiting for the forces of England to attack so that they can get back their rightful king and things might fall into place. With this, Act 3 ends, and I end this lecture. In the next lecture, we shall meet very soon. Thank you.